What's happening, everybody? It's Tom, and today we're talking about Update 39 Patch 2 release notes. I'm going to go through them quickly, kind of give you the ups and downs and what matters in these patch notes. So, number one, to start off, we got Kensai's Power Surge is no longer considered an action boost. For those of you that don't know why that's important, Kensai Power Surge, it was an action boost. It was something that Kensai's got at level 12 out of the tree, so fighters. It gave +8 psionic bonus to all stats. It's relatively useful. And it was really cool because it was an action boost, so it got a whole bunch of extra uses from your extra action boosts. So it basically was like 12 minutes of +8 to all stats. Really powerful. However, because it was considered an action boost, when you activated it, it activated Prowess. Prowess is coded so that way, Prowess being the 5 set sentient item bonus, gives you 75 melee power when you activate an action boost. It's coded so that you don't get a new activation of Prowess unless you activate an action boost while Power Surge is off. Or sorry, not Power Surge, but an action boost is off. You have to go from no action boost to get Prowess. It doesn't give you the buff unless you have no action boosts. This is problematic because Power Surge being considered as an action boost meant that you would have to wait an entire minute before you could get Prowess back, which meant no fighters were using Power Surge. This change makes it so that Power Surge actually is useful now, and you can get 8 uses of Power Surge, which is pretty fantastic. Apparently, One Cut also worked like an action boost. So anyway, this is a huge buff to fighters. It just means that you can use Power Surge now, which is kind of great. Colors of the Queen will no longer reflect allies while the Flame of the Favored, which means favored souls are not killing people. And Blinding Speed now gives you the correct amount of 22% ranged attack bonus, or attack speed, which is what it was supposed to do. So now, on top of that, we got some item changes. That is new war paints for wolves, winter wolves, bears, and dire bears. They look relatively cool. Better vert damage dice on the Crystal Cove weapons. The Crystal Cove weapons were supposed to have like augmented damage dice. The level 28 ones would have the new scaling damage dice where they get like a +2 or a +4 in their dice like calculation. They weren't updated like that, and now they are, so that's kind of cool. Fairlight Carnival weapons have a minimum level. Apparently, they didn't have one. Wave's freeze effect is now applies now more reliably and is made of bone. So that just changes the weapon so that since it's made of bone, it doesn't break as often on different types of materials. The Cursed Shard is now cold iron, which was supposed to be in the first place. Handref said sentient jewels can now be converted into collars. This is a problem because if you put a sentient jewel in an item and then you took it out and then you wanted to turn that item into a collar, you had to get a new copy of the item and it didn't work. So you can't actually put a sentient jewel then turn it into a collar, but now at least if you take a sentient jewel out of something, you can now turn it into a collar. Spinal Tap, the sword, does D11, or now goes up to 11, which is what it's supposed to do. It's Spinal Tap's weapon. Cold Harbor Cladding's fire no longer dispels itself. It does this a lot. I don't know why it does this. Basically, this is a chest piece that when you turn it on or when you equip it, it gives you fire shield. It would just randomly turn off. Now it doesn't do that, which is great. It's possible to get mythic versions of items in Return to White Plume Mountain. It's good. Sentient gems with a spark and over 60,000 sentient XP, so no longer lose their extra XP when being fed to a different gem. This is good. Losing XP is bad. And a fell wind blows through the game, and your nightmares include voices whispering Night Revels approaches. So Night Revels is on its way. That's kind of cool. As far as big changes, we got a couple big changes here coming up at the end. Number one, melee survivability changes. So there's a change coming to the game for epic characters. Epic defensive fighting is going to be a free feat every single character will get access to. It's at level 21. And the way that it works is that just by being level 21, every character can get this feat. It's for free. It's a stance. So while the stance is active, you get 5% bonus health, and you get an extra 5% for every feat from this list that you have. And it all feeds together. So if you have this, so 5%, plus you have improved two-handed fighting, greater two-handed fighting, two-handed fighting, improved, greater, and perfect two-handed fighting, these 4 feats, then you're going to get 25 bonus health. It's awesome. It helps melee characters have a little bit more health. Now you might say, but Strimtom, what if I'm just playing Warlock and I just take single weapon fighting, improved single weapon fighting, greater single weapon fighting, and perfect single weapon fighting, so then that way I get the bonus health too, and that's super broken because like ranged classes already got better stats. I'm glad you asked. Because it doesn't just come with there's like a caveat there. It's not just free stats. It also comes with a huge minus. All spell or spell-like abilities that are affected by meta magics have their range reduced to touch range. This is all healing spells, damage spells, crowd control spells. They all become touch range. So you have to imagine them all as shocking touch now, shocking grasp. Your double shot and range power are 0, so you cannot use this with ranged weapons. For those of you that are wondering, range power gets over 300. Double shot gets almost close to 300. Turning that to 0 means you do 0 damage. This feat is exclusive from all the ranged stances, such as Improved Precise Shot, Archer's Focus, Shirati stances, and the Warlock Blast. You cannot use Warlock Blast while you're doing this. This feat is exclusive from the Enlarge spell Meta Magic, so you can't use Enlarge while it's active. It remains active while dead. It can be used with all other defensive and offensive stances, and it can be used while raging. The Paladin's defensive stance hit point buff was changed to competency. So this effect here is a competency bonus. It does not stack with Paladin defensive bonus. It does not stack with the Fighter defensive health point bonus from both of their respective trees. And Azamar Ritual hit points bonus has been changed to Sacred. Azamar was competence, now it's Sacred, so now Azamar hit points stack with everything else, which is really great. So this means that you have to make some sacrifices, but your melee characters can get in there and get some extra health. So if you have to be playing Ranger, if you have to be playing Rogue, if you happen to be playing, Barbarian or Fighter or Monk, classes that traditionally aren't casting a lot of spells, then you can get this extra health point buff without really sacrificing too much. And if you want to play as a character that has some kind of cool hybrid synergy, say you want to play as a cleric, well, clerics lose the range on their spells. They can still cast all their spells, but you lose your range while you have this feat active. So if you want to cast a heal spell, you got to land on somebody. If you want to cast Greater Command, you got to land on somebody. Now, granted, this doesn't stop some of the best parts about War Priest. If you're playing as a melee War Priest, you'll still have access to all the fun stuff like not Wail of the Banshee, Implosion, which is really great. Slay Living is still, of course, very, very powerful. So you still have a lot of good stuff, and it's not really affected that much. But like I said, it does change things a bit. Now, some people were really upset. They're like, man, but I play Paladin, and I like using my heals on people and stuff. But now I can't do them at range? Well, one, you're a melee class, get into melee. However, if you would like to use them at range, it's a toggle. You just turn it off. You just turn it off, cast your spells, and turn it back on. It's just a stance. So I'm really excited for this change. I think it's going to help a lot of people get into epics. It starts at level 21. It's designed to help characters get into epics and really try it out. A lot of people are afraid this extra health will help encourage you, or encourage people that haven't tried epics to just start playing it, as well as let a few more odd and more diverse builds start to creep into epics and have a good time. There was some pushback from this. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, well, people can beat Reaper 10 content and stuff. This is going to make their characters more powerful." And the answer I have to that question is, if people are already beating Reaper 10 content, their characters don't need to be more powerful. Ergo, this change does not affect them. It affects the players that are still reaching up there. That's kind of the idea. Help them with the survivability, give them some more time. Speaking of survivability, Barbarian changes. Barbarian damage reduction is no longer the classic damage reduction of 1, 2, or 3 points, or however much it goes up when you get levels. Instead, you get 3% damage absorption for all damage types except Bane. This is a straight percentage damage reduced before physical and magical resistance rating. So you calculate the damage, and then you do physical, or you calculate your damage reduction, and then you do physical and magical resistance rating. A pure Barbarian, if you get an extra 1% when you would normally get an extra 1 DR, is going to end up with 9% DR at level 20. And then Occult Slayers, which usually give an extra 1 DR, instead are going to give 1%, give an extra 4%. And then Fury of the Wild's damage reduction passive absorbs by an additional 1% at the 3rd rank, giving you 14% total damage reduction. To think about how potent that's going to be, this 14% layering plus all the physical and magical resistance rating you can actually get is going to make Barbarians very, very tanky. And with the extra health that Barbarians are now getting, because they didn't have a stance before that was giving them extra health, this is going to be huge. I'm really excited to see kind of how tanky you can make a Barbarian, and now potentially how much defense or you can sacrifice because you just have this raw percentage damage reduction. It's going to be really interesting. Next, we got now more undead don't heal improperly, which is great. A new named NPC named Aelwyn Melodic is available in the Iberon Hall of Heroes, who will turn unwanted cosmetics gained from daily dice and deconstruct them into glamour dust, which can be crafted into other cosmetics from daily dice. You ever get a repeat from your daily dice? Don't worry about it. You get dust, you can turn it into something else. This is a great idea. I really like the idea of being able to take your unwanted goods and turn them into other things. This is how they do in Hearthstone and all these other collectible games. You just take the thing you wanted, and from the box, the mystery box, you break it down and you can buy something else. I don't like mystery boxes, but I do like being able to specifically buy a thing you want, and so this is a good change in my book, because it doesn't change the economy, it doesn't make things rarer because they were already rare, it just means you can get things more consistently. Enter the Kobold is open again, so that's great. Fixed a spot in White Plume Mountain, good. Codex in the Shroud, Fortis will no longer spawn Sigil of Life randomly. which causes apparently people to have performance issues. Less cultists and misery speak. I never do misery speak. Too many cultists. Literally. That's why I don't do it. It's because there's too many goddamn cultists. There's like 150 monsters in this quest. Now there's less. Perfect. Trimming some of the bushes in Evening Star is fantastic. And apparently in the arena challenges for Evening Star, the supply crates cause performance issues. I've never seen that, but I don't know. This is one of the biggest changes in here. The three biggest changes would be the health change, the barbarian change, and then this Reaper damage change. So Reaper difficulty. Damage and healing values now have a minimum value of 1 due to Reaper scaling. If Reaper scaling would reduce the value of damage or healing that is above 0 to 0, then that value will now be at least 1. This is important for a whole bunch of reasons. Number 1, vampirism items are now useful. Crafting a low-level vampirism item and using it will give you 1 health back on every attack. Previously, it was 0. Vampirism got rolled down to 0 because everything in Dungeons & Dragons is rounded down, so anything that did 1 damage actually did 0. Also, on hit effects. Some of you might have noticed that the damage from some of your on hit effects is actually a lot lower than you imagine it's supposed to be. Like if you add a d6 fire damage onto a weapon, you notice when you attack stuff in Reaper mode, you're doing, whatever your base damage is plus 0 a lot. And that's because if you roll something that rounds the number down, it will round down to 0, which is really problematic. So if you happen to roll a 1, it actually rounds to 0. And then the way the game calculates damage is that if you have, let's just say you have 5 d6s, the weirdest thing is that the game calculates each damage individually and then adds them together. So it calculates each damage and then rounds them and then adds those numbers together. Well, if the damage reduction from Reaper mode actually reduces them all to 0 because you rolled a bunch of 1s, then your 5d6 is to 0, which is mathematically impossible. This prevents that and is a great change. Finally, skill bonus group strings now have more verbose and accurate tooltips descriptions. I have no idea what that means. And feats are now organized by category in the character sheet. So I'm excited to see what all that turns into. These are great patch notes. I'm looking forward to some of the cool stuff in game, especially this Reaper difficulty thing. This came basically the way the Reaper difficulty thing scales and how you can use this. Doing Reaper 10 quests at level 2 was impossible because you couldn't do enough damage. You start doing 0 damage to monsters thanks to damage reduction. However, this means you don't do 0 damage. And not only that, this actually allows you to do positive amounts of damage with added damage effects. So in theory, you could get a repeating crossbow that is enchanted to do force damage and bludgeoning damage. So it's going to add 2 different damage dice. So you do 1 point of damage from the shot, 1 point of damage from the bludgeoning, and 1 point of damage from the force. Then you slap on +1 electric bolts, which work for minimum level 2, dealing an extra 1 damage of electric damage. So every bolt you're shooting does 4 damage, which means you can go 1, 2, 3, and you're doing 12 damage to a target, assuming you're hitting them. Which means full groups of crossbow guys might actually be able to take down Reaper 10 quests at level 2 with this scaling. It's something I was theorizing, but due to the rounding, it doesn't work. This might bring it back. So I'm very excited. I might see if I can get some guys to get together and do that, but we'll see. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. As always, have a super day. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. See ya.